Hello folks and welcome to Watch with Westwood, where today we're going to be looking at Gilmore Girls, Season 1, Episode 1, the pilot, where it all began. Now something I love when watching a TV show or a movie is when you understand a pop culture reference that's in the script, because it's sort of like a wink wink nudge nudge between the character and the viewer, that sort of shared collective, hey, we both get that reference. But what if you don't get the reference? Unfortunately then it's just dead script, because not everybody has the same level of knowledge and we all have to learn something for the first time at one point, don't we? And with a show like Gilmore Girls, which came out in the year 2000, personally I was 10 years old. I'm not from America, I'm from England, and so a lot of the contemporary references and points of call go straight over my head. And so I have to do a little bit of research to find out what it is, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. I'm going to go through every episode of Gilmore Girls and go through every pop culture reference to give a little bit of background so that when you go through and watch it again on your next watch through, that little bit of knowledge will help reinforce the joke and make it even funnier. Because when people say, if you have to explain a joke, it's not funny, I don't believe that. You've got to have all the building blocks in order to enjoy the building. That's a terrible metaphor. Maybe there'll be better writing in the show. So it's going to be fun to go through them. And that's exactly what's going to happen. We're going to go through all the pop culture references and then a little bit of select trivia at the end. And I'll just give my review of the episode as well. So without further ado, let's take a trip to Stars Hollow. And straight off the bat, we haven't even had the opening credits yet. We have our first pop culture reference. Lorelai has just come into Luke's diner in order to get a cup of coffee. She sat down to enjoy a hot beveragino and overcomes this guy in order to chat her up. And they have this little exchange.
Yeah, I've never been here before, just passing through on my way to Hartford.
You're a regular Jack Kerouac.
Yeah.
You can see the guy is confused. We'll help you out, buddy. Jack Kerouac was an author and a founder of the Beat movement in the 1950s. He wrote lots of essays, poetry, and books, and his most famous one is arguably On the Road, which was published in 1957, and it tells the story of Kerouac and his friends traveling across the continental United States by car and all the adventures that they have along the way with the backdrop of jazz and booze and just living life. And that is exactly what Lorelai is referring to here. The guy is saying, hey, you know, I'm just passing through Hartford by car, stopping in, enjoying things. And she's going, well, aren't you just a regular Jack Kerouac? With not even enough time to take a sip of that now cooling coffee, Rory has come in. She takes a seat opposite Lorelai and she says, hey, I need some lip gloss. Lorelai starts pulling out bags of makeup and Rory says this.
It has no smell, but it changes colors with your mood.
God, RuPaul doesn't need this much makeup.
RuPaul is, of course, somewhat of a household name now, partly in thanks to his eponymous show, RuPaul's Drag Race. But that show didn't come out until 2009, 9 years after Rory made this reference. But to clarify who RuPaul is, he is a rather well-known drag artist, and so he gets made up in wonderful outfits and costumes and of course puts on so much makeup. And in this scene, Rory is saying, Mum, you've got a lot of makeup here. Even someone who puts on makeup for a living doesn't need as much makeup as you've produced right here, when all I asked for was a little bit of shine on the lips. And before she's even managed to put on the lip gloss, Rory says she's cranky, and this is the reason why.
I'm sorry. I lost my Macy Gray CD and I need caffeine.
Oh, I have your CD.
Thief?
Macy Gray is an American R&B and soul singer with an incredible voice. In the present day, she has 10 studio albums, but her first one from 1999, On How Life Is, became triple platinum in the US, all in part for her most recognizable song, I Try, which received 3 Grammy nominations and won her one for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. And it is this album that Lorelai has in her hand that she has stolen from Rory. Maybe Rory will try to take it. I try to take it back. I try to take it back and I choke. Let's go on to the next one. In order to apologize to Rory for stealing her CD, Lorelai tries to get her a cup of coffee, but when she does, Luke is policing her because Lorelai's having too much coffee. Anyway, this is what Lorelai says.
What? It's not for me, it's for Rory, I swear.
You're shameless.
Look, Officer Krupke, she's right at that table, right over there.
Officer Krupke, or to give him his proper rank and title, Sergeant Krupke, is one of only 4 adults who are in the musical West Side Story. He is, of course, a police officer, and he is policing the streets to make sure that gang warfare doesn't happen between the Jets and the Sharks, but he isn't seen as that much of a malevolent force. In fact, he's kind of liked, and there's a comedy song called G Officer Krupke, which is in his honor, with the famous last line, G Officer Krupke, Krup you. So, of course, they like him a little bit. And since his job is as, of course, a police officer, that is what Lorelai is referring to here when Luke is policing the distribution of coffee. Because, hey, Krup you. At last, the opening credits have played. My goodness, they can fit in a lot, can't they? And now we see Rory walking with her friend Lane, and they're discussing how Lane actually hides aspects of her personality from her strict parents. And this is what's said.
When are you gonna let your parents know that you listen to the evil rock music? You're an American teenager, for God's sake.
Rory, if my parents still get upset over the obscene portion size of American food, I seriously doubt I'm gonna make any inroads with Eminem.
Eminem is the stage name of Marshall Mathers III, and he is considered today as one of the greatest artists of all time. But as of the time of writing this episode, he was still relatively new on the rap scene, having only released 2, possibly 3 albums as of the time of writing, but one of them was extremely important and influential, the Slim Shady LP. It was this alternate persona of Slim Shady that really put him on the global stage, with the song My Name Is being sung all over the world, and still to this day he releases incredible albums that sell, and he can pack stadiums, and he is a legend in the music industry. And here Lane is expressing her love for Eminem, though she does say that it is evil rock music, which Eminem's music isn't, it is just rap, but I suppose to Lane's parents, all music that isn't a church hymn sounds like evil rock music. Can the real Slim Shady please stand up and then take a pew and bow your head in reverence as we sing hymn 43? Let's continue. Lorelai has just opened a letter and read some wonderful news that her daughter Rory has gotten into Chilton, which is a fantastic achievement and it's going to set her up for the rest of her life. And in order to celebrate, Lorelai has got her a little gift, and this is what she gives her.
I'm gonna be in a Britney Spears video?
The Britney Spears video in question would be for the #1 worldwide hit, Baby One More Time, which came out in 1999, a year before this episode was aired. In the video, Britney Spears and her backup dancers are dressed like Catholic schoolgirls and are wearing skirts not dissimilar to the one that Rory has just received as a gift. So of course, Rory's thinking, oh, I'm going to be in the next big vid. Of course, Suki doesn't want to be left out of the celebration, so she offers what she can in order to congratulate Rory.
Suki, I'm going to Chilton! I'll make cookies. Protestants love oatmeal.
But why does she say that Protestants love oatmeal? I mean, is that a common thing? I'm not religious, but I don't recall it being a wafer, wine, and a bowl of porridge. Well, I think it's because of Quaker oats. The guy on the packaging, the name of it, he's a Quaker. Quakers are a form of Protestantism, and if you are willing to put your denomination on something, it probably means that you love it. And Quaker oats, they must love oatmeal, so Suki will make some oatmeal cookies because Protestants love oatmeal. Fact. But entry into Chilton has quite a hefty price tag, and as Lorelai and Suki are trying to figure out how to get the money, Suki is referencing something that maybe Lorelai has to do, but Lorelai says this.
I think it's your only option, Suki. There are several chapters from a Stephen King novel I'd reenact before I'd resort to that option.
Stephen King is an American author who has been dubbed the King of Horror, his last name really lending itself nicely there, and he has written hundreds upon hundreds of horror novels, some of the best horror novels in the modern day, such as Carrie, Christine, Salem's Lot, It, The Shining, The Stand, and so many more. And so Lorelai is saying there are several scenes within Stephen King's work of horror that she would rather recreate than have to do the thing that Suki and Lorelai are discussing Lorelai may have to do. And thinking of Stephen King scenes, the one that I would say would be the worst would be in Misery, when Paul thinks that he's better and wants to leave, But Annie is like, no, you ain't going nowhere, and puts the cinder block in between his feet and gets the sledgehammer. And in all fairness, I would probably want to go through that than have to have a difficult conversation on the phone with someone. Yeah, smash my ankles in. The celebration of Rory's achievements continue, and Suki wants to put on some food.
Where's your pete? At Zsa Zsa Gabor's house?
Zsa Zsa Gabor was a Hungarian-American actress who appeared in a slew of films with her career starting in the 1950s, but what she is most well known for is being an extravagant socialite. She lived a life full of all the trappings of wealth, and she was the epitome, the idol of extravagance. She married 9 times, and many of her husbands were incredibly wealthy, and with that she lived an incredible life. And so when Suki asks, where's the pate? Lorelei's like, well, you think we have pate? Who's gonna have pate? We've been eating pizza for the last 5 years. The pate's gonna be at Zsa Zsa Gabor's house. Only she, the extravagant one, will have pate. Do you know, I have pate as my starter for Christmas dinner. It's not that extravagant when you can get it for £2.50 from Asda, is it? So it's all good. Rory's excited about leaving the high school in order to go to Chilton. She's clearing out her locker. She said bye to Lane. She's got a box of things and drop the books all on the floor. She's picking up the books and she says this.
God, you're like Ruth Gordon, just standing there with the tannis root. Make a noise.
Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby is a horror film from 1968 which focuses on Rosemary, played by Mia Farrow, and her baby, the one that she is carrying, that a cult believes is going to be the next spawn of Satan. The cult leader is played by Ruth Gordon, who actually won a Best Supporting Actress Oscar for this role. Now in the film, Ruth Gordon's character gives Rosemary a necklace filled with tannis root, which is a fictional herb, and she says that this herb, the pendant of such, will give protection against demonic forces. But it's actually kind of the opposite, and it's used in a ritual to help bind her new baby to the demon that they are trying to summon. And that's why you see tannis root being put into food and drinks as well. Turns out Rosemary has ingested a lot of this tannis root. No bueno indeed, and so not a good thing. When Rory says this, you're just standing there like Ruth Gordon holding the tannis root, it's a little odd because there isn't actually a scene where like Ruth Gordon's just standing there still with a tannis root. So it's a little bit difficult to think what she's saying, but maybe she's just a little bit flustered because, she's knocked into that, she's dropped the things, and she's like, you scared me, shocked me, like Rosemary's Baby, just standing there with the tannis root. I don't know, it's a little bit of a tenuous reference, but what is cool is that Dean knows the reference. It looks like Rory's falling for someone. And Rory has seen the tall glass of water that is Jared Padalecki. Whilst introducing himself, they have this conversation.
My family just moved here from Chicago.
Chicago. Windy. Oprah.
Yeah, that's the place.
I've always found it very fascinating as to why Chicago got the nickname the Windy City. One reason is that people say that it is rather windy, but it isn't. There is a breeze that comes off Lake Michigan, which Chicago is based on the shoreline of, but I don't know if enough to get that nickname. I've been to Chicago and I've stood on the shore of Lake Michigan in February, and oh my gosh, the cold, it cuts through you. But I don't know if that's enough to actually name the city that. My favorite theory is that the politicians were so easily corrupted, were so easily bought, that they would change with the wind. So you could just bribe a local official and they would go with whatever you wanted, and because of that, it was known as the Windy City, because they would just change with the wind, and their policies and their stances would just flitter in the breeze. That's the one I'm going with. And Oprah is Oprah Winfrey, a TV host, author, entrepreneur, media mogul, and she's probably most well known for her eponymous show, The Oprah Winfrey Show, which was broadcast from Chicago. Hence Rory's connection. What happens in Chicago? She doesn't go for the deep dish pizza. That's what I think of when I think of Chicago. No, just that it's windy and Oprah's from there. Fair enough. I mean, she's a bit dazzled by Dean, so yeah. Okay, so like in the space of 5 hours, Rory has now fallen for Dean and wants to give up going to Chilton in order to remain at the high school to be near him. I'm going to give my opinion on that at the end of this video, but anyway, Lorelai and Rory have a disagreement about this. They storm out of Luke's diner, and on the way home, they walk past Miss Patty's dance studio. Miss Patty comes out and says to Rory, "Oh, by the way, your male friend, I found a job for him. He can work in the shop." Oh, Lorelai's clocked on, and as Rory storms off, she has this to say.
1, 2, 3.
You're gonna have to walk faster than that. You're gonna have to turn into friggin' Flo-Jo to get away from me.
Flo-Jo is the nickname of Florence Dolores Griffith Joyner, who was an amazing American track and field athlete. She represented the United States in the 1984 and the 1988 Olympics, where she amassed 2 silver and 3 gold. Those 3 golds were in the group effort of the 4x100 meter relay, and her individual efforts in the 100 meter sprint and the 200 meter sprint, both of which she set world records for that still to this day have been unbroken. She is unfortunately no longer with us, but her legacy stands as the fastest woman. And so in context of the scene, Lorelai is saying, "Rory, you're going to have to run faster than Flo-Jo to be able to get away from this conversation we're about to have, Missy." The big fallout has happened, there's been a lot of heat and friction, but now it's the next day, we're in the kitchen of the hotel, and oh look, there's even more heat.
Oh God, I killed a Viking. Oh, you should fire me or maybe take the cost of a new stove out of my paycheck.
Well, whatever you want.
I can't afford a new stove. Those things are expensive.
The Viking is the name of the brand of cooker that has now unfortunately exploded, and Suki wasn't joking when she says, "Oh, I can't afford it," because a new one of these bad boys would set you back around $15,000. So, yeah. I think we're just going to be cooking with a microwave for the meantime. They say if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. So Lorelai leaves, but she's now met with frigidness in the form of the cold shoulder from Rory. And in response to that, Lorelai has this to say.
You're not gonna give me the Mommie Dearest treatment forever, are you?
Mommie Dearest was a memoir published in 1978 by Christina Crawford, the adopted daughter of Hollywood screen legend Joan Crawford. In the book, Christina details allegations of emotional and physical abuse she received at the hands of her mother. When the book came out, a lot of people were divided over the validity of said allegations. Some said that it was all made up in order to try to sell a book and get some money, whilst others say they witnessed it firsthand. Regardless, Lorelai is making this reference because Rory is treating her own mother, i.e. herself, with such disdain and a silent treatment that it would prompt one to think that she had been the victim of abuse for most of her life, much like Christina Crawford. Oh, what a terrible thing it is to be told, no, don't give up your future for a young love. Ah, what an iron fist Lorelai Gilmore rules with. So now it's Friday night, and Lorelai and Rory have gone to Emily and Richard's house in order to have their dinner. And as they're standing outside, waiting to go in, Rory has this little quip.
So, do we go in or do we just stand here reenacting the little match girl?
It's a short story by Hans Christian Andersen, published in 1845, and it's about a young girl who makes a living going door to door selling matches. On a cold New Year's Eve, out in the snow, she tries to stay warm by lighting one of the matches and holding the flame close. And within that flame, she has wonderful visions of a happy home, a Christmas tree, and a loving family. Next to the flame, she has visions of her late grandmother, and it makes her happy, so she keeps lighting matches in order to try to stay with her. And as the evening goes on, she uses up all of her matches, and eventually she dies out in the cold, never having gained to live that wonderful vision of a happy family and a wonderful home. But at least she gets to be with her grandmother now. And Rory's making the reference because, well, they're standing outside and they're cold. That's pretty much it. No death, no late grandmother, no having to pawn off matchsticks. Just, I'm cold. Yep, But Lorelai doesn't like that level of sarcasm, so she has to put her foot down and reply in her own special way.
Okay, look, I know you and me are having a thing here, and I know you hate me, but I need you to be civil, at least through dinner, and then on the way home you can pull a Menendez. Deal?
Joseph Lal Menendez and Eric Galen Menendez are a pair of brothers who in 1989 murdered their parents, Jose and Mary, with a 12-gauge shotgun. They weren't arrested at the time of the killings because their alibi was airtight and they didn't seem to have a motive, but they were on the detective's sights. And 7 months later, they were brought in and arrested for the crime. Now, what was it that led to their arrests? Was it the spending of over $700,000 of their parents' estates after their deaths? No. Was it a breakthrough in crime scene forensics that unearthed new clues that led to a culprit? No. Was it a wire that Eric's friend had worn in order to try and catch a confession out of him secretly? No. It was the fact that Eric had gone to a psychologist and confessed the crime. The psychologist had then told his mistress all about it. When he dumped her, she went to the police and told them everything. And so the lesson I get from this is be careful who you're dumping. Don't murder, I suppose, is probably a good lesson to take from that. But yeah, definitely be careful on who you're breaking up with because they've got dirt on you. But in context of the scene, Lorelai is saying, Rory, let's just get through this dinner without any problems, okay? And then afterwards, if you still want to, you can pull a Menendez, i.e. you can me, which is a lovely thing for your mother to say to you, giving you that permission for matricide. Aww. So the Gilmore Girls have had their Friday night dinner. There's been a little bit of a disagreement between Emily and Lorelai. Rory has found out that her grandparents are going to be paying her Chilton fees. They go back to Luke's in order to decompress. They talk about it. Everything's out on the table. They're friends again. Lorelai and Rory are vibing. Oh, but Lorelai still doesn't know anything about this guy that Rory was going to throw away her future for. Anyway, she has this to ask.
So tell me about the guy.
Mom.
Is he dreamy?
Oh, that's so Nick at Night.
Nickelodeon is a TV channel that makes content primarily aimed at kids, but Nick at Night is a nighttime programming block that was aimed at late teens and adults. And in this block, they would usually show reruns of sitcoms from the early 50s through to the 70s. And this block served well for a newer audience to really appreciate those older shows such as The Donna Reed Show. And that is why Rory, who is only 16, says, that's so Nick at Night, because Lorelai has gone, is he dreamy? Which is very much a cliched 1950s type of sentiment. So Lorelai saying this 50s-esque phrase makes Rory think of 50s-esque TV, which makes her think of Nick at Night. The way these Gilmore Girls minds work, it's just incredible. And so that was every single pop culture reference within that first episode. And oh my gosh, it's taken me so long to record this because that's the thing with Gilmore Girls is that there are so many pop culture references. And sometimes you don't even get a moment to breathe. They just hit them out. You can have like a good 10-15 minutes of dialogue and exposition and dramaturgical pushing forward. Yes, it's all great. But then you have just this rapid fire, oh my gosh, I can't keep up. And it's something else. So yes, we've had a look at all those pop culture references, of which there are so many. If there are any that I missed out, or if you watch it back and you think, oh, why didn't you mention that? Just put it in the comments down below and I will reply right there. But away from that, let's move away from the world of the script and let's talk about a little bit of trivia that I've managed to find online. So Scott Patterson, who plays Luke, was not hired initially as a series regular. He was only signed on for the pilot episode. Although it was only after discovering the undeniable chemistry between him and Lauren Graham that he was contracted for more episodes and quickly became a series regular, which I'm really glad. I really relate to Luke. I really like Luke because I think I'm quite like him. Just, he's not nihilistic or angry at the world, but there's a sense of that I get. And it really vibes with me. So Lane, who we saw, Rory's friend, she was 26. 26 playing a 15-year-old. That is some good casting. I couldn't even get cast as a 25-year-old when I was 27. So that's good right there. So the actress who plays Rory, and I can't say her name out loud because her first name sounds very much like the Amazon assistant, and my TV will pick it up and react, so I can't say her name. But anyway, the actress, she hates coffee, which is kind of a big thing since Rory and Lorelai have coffee going through their veins. So whenever you see her drinking coffee, she's actually drinking Coca-Cola, which I would say objectively is probably worse. I love this one. So Kelly Bishop, who plays Emily Gilmore, recalled that when the show started filming, Rory's actress was so inexperienced as an actor that she sometimes didn't understand which camera she should face. Bishop said, "I remember saying to Lauren at one point, I love when I'm watching the show how you're always touching her." And Lauren said, "Actually, the reason I started doing that was because I wanted her to get her mark." That is an actor looking out for an actor right there. I like that. Remember me saying before about how much I love the patter and the quick repartee, the fast-paced dialogue that they have? Well, here's a little thing for this. In a November 2020 New York Times article by Sal Austerlitz, Scott Patterson, who played Luke, said that he and Lauren Graham, who played Lorelai, both realized soon after starting to appear on the show that if they hoped to have the lung capacity needed to keep up with the ultra-quick pace of patter-type dialogue, they would both have to quit smoking. "She needed her wind, and I needed my wind," he was quoted as saying. And that's fair enough. So this is the pilot, yes, but there was an unaired pilot, and you can still check it out. I've watched it, and it is strange. There's very similar themes throughout. Of course, the story is very much the same, but a lot of the actors are different. Suki was originally played by Alex Borstein. However, Alex was unable to get out of a deal from another show, so she ended up guest starring as Drella, an employee of the inn, who plays the harp. And if you do get the chance to watch that unaired pilot, I would say give it a go, because it's interesting to see how that was sort of the unbaked clay that eventually made this pilot, because there's a lot of themes, a lot of things that do carry on over. And as much as I love Melissa McCarthy playing Suki, Alex Borstein does do a really good job of it. But I'm glad that she still got to have a chance to be in a bigger capacity with Amy Sherman Palladino in The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, because she's such a wonderful actress, and the things that she's done over the years, incredible. As has Melissa McCarthy, as has all of them, to be honest. What a talented group to just run that story and to do so for so many years. And the intricacies, yes. Hang on, let me get the video right. That was the trivia. Now's my opinion on the show. Okay. So yes, as I was saying before I interrupted myself right there, it is a wonderful show. What with all the layers of relationship, it's just brilliant. It's a very well observed setup, because it's not necessarily something that a lot of people can relate to, being a single parent, a young single parent, having broken away from a rather wealthy family. That isn't something that is accessible to a lot of people, but the relationships are. Having a very friendly relationship with a child, or as I see, if you see it from Rory's perspective, with a parent, but then the blurring of lines when that has to change, those dynamics have to change. Obviously, in this episode and in later episodes, Lorelai has to be the mother. Can't be the friend anymore, but has to be the mother, and that dynamic shifts, and that's something that's very interesting. We all have parents. A lot of us have kids. I don't, but, you know, I do have parents. I was born. And so that sort of relationship of friendship blurring with authority, it's a very interesting one. That's something that they can relate to. And then the schism as well. You get to see two relationships, two mother-daughter relationships in play. You get to see Lorelai and Rory with their very friendly relationship, and you get to see Lorelai and Emily with their very fractured relationship. And so, of course, everything's kind of covered. So in that sense, you do get to actually buy into this world. And the world itself is beautiful. I mean, this lovely little hamlet, basically, of joy. And you understand why this often gets referred to as autumn, as fall comes around, because it is such a vibe. Brown leaves falling down, a cup of coffee, things just starting to get a bit cold, wrap yourself up in a scarf, go out for a long walk. That's Gilmore Girls weather. That is Gilmore Girls vibes right there. And I think there's a part of us that would love to be in just a little community where everything is in walking distance and you get to be a regular at a local diner and everybody knows who you are and you get to be friends with everyone and you just have this sense of belonging and a sense of life, and you have goals like, oh, you're going to go off and study and do something amazing. I want to go off and have this and all of these things. And I think that's something which is really nice. And it's just a really warm, comforting thing. And that's what brings you in and keeps you in, because the humor of it, the comfort of just hearing these voices, I think that's actually a rather big thing about it. There's a lot of quick patter and a lot of talking, and I think that's very comfortable to listen to, because otherwise when there's silences, you can feel a little bit awkward. There's a sense of that when, I can just talk for ages, but when there's any dip in a conversation or a silence, it can be slightly uncomfortable. And so hearing people just constantly talking, it's crazy how quickly they speak in Gilmore Girls. There's very little dead air. And that's a great sense of comfort to actually watch and listen to, because it feels like you're part of it. But onto the actual episode itself, it does a really good job of setting up the whole thing. I get the whole history of that family. I get the whole history of their dynamic right there, and it's brilliant. But dramaturgically, what happens, I have brought this up before in conversation, and I've said it before, and I've had people disagree with me. And I tell you who disagrees with me. It is the people who disagree with me are women who have had crushes when they were Rory's age, because I find it, maybe it's because I'm 33, okay, and I was never a 16-year-old girl. I find it incredibly reprehensible that Rory would give up her future in order to be near this guy, okay? Like, she wants to give up. She is so excited about going into Chilton. She's so excited about this new level of academia that she's about to onboard. And she just goes, actually, no, do you know what? I could probably still get into Yale if I didn't get to Chilton. I'll just stay at the local high. Because there's this guy that she finds dreamy. I find that incredibly ridiculous to relate to. I get a lot of pushback because a lot of women go, no, that is very much true to life. And in all fairness, when I think about my own life, I have done ridiculous things out of a crush, but not within like 4 hours. I find that a little bit crazy. Literally like 4 hours. She's like, nah, give it all up. So that bit's a little bit, But anyway, it's a great pilot, and I can see why it got picked up. I can see how it went on for like 7 more seasons, and everything that comes after it, with the amount of love and the amount of care and the amount of humor and the amount of pop culture references, and there's so much more. There's so much more, and there's such a journey to go on. As we'll be going through, you're going to see different things. You're going to see different boyfriends, and we're going to start forming teams. And I'm going to need to start hearing in the comments which team you're on. Dean, Jess, Logan. We're going to see. But we're not there yet, are we? Because that was season 1, episode 1 of Gilmore Girls. And so thank you so much for watching, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm going to be working my way through all of Gilmore Girls. I'm going to be working my way through other TV shows as well. So make sure you stick around, subscribe, so you don't miss any of them. If you enjoyed this, then please do leave a like and comment down below any of your favorite references from the episode, any references that you want to make sure I don't miss in future episodes, and also any other TV shows that I haven't started to cover yet. Let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to follow me on the other platforms as well, on my Instagram and on my TikTok, because I post just 1-minute short form videos explaining pop culture references there as well. I've rambled on so much. I think that I'm in the show itself because I'm talking so much. But anyway, I'm going to end it here. My friends, thank you so much for being here. Luck and more to you all. Catch you next time.